Hi, I'm Kirby Allison, and I couldn't be any more excited to finally be reunited with Dominic Casey here in London. Dominic, it's so great to see you in the flesh.
Yep.
It has been too long.
Yep.
I think you've probably, of all of my friends here in London, you're probably the one that I've been speaking with at least the most consistently over lockdown and travel bans.
Exactly.
So, although it has been far too long, it just seems like, that we haven't missed a beat at all.
Yep. Welcome to London.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to see you back.
Yeah, thank you.
Really nice to see you back.
So we're here at 11 St. George's, where you share a small little showroom with Byrne and Burge, right?
Yep.
Josh Burge.
Josh Burge,
That's
yep.
right. So he's a bespoke tailor. And
Yeah, he's a tailor. Yeah, he does all kinds of stuff. He's the only tailor I know who's got a password, Byrne and Burge, on his website. So you actually need a password to get into his website.
That's right, yeah.
So he's...
So this is where, I guess, traditionally you'd see your clients here in London.
Yes, when I'm in London.
They don't have a hotel or a house.
No,
or,
exactly. I either go and see them in the hotel if they ask me to,
Yeah.
or they come here.
Yeah.
So that's where we meet.
Well, great. Well, I know that you've got some interesting things that you've brought along with you to show us. I thought we would just kind of jump straight into it.
Yeah. Well, I think this is really a follow-on from the last video that we made together when you actually came into the workshop via the video link, and we talked about the fitting shoes with the micro rubber soles and heels. And, micro rubber soles and heels is, interestingly enough, one of my things. And you said, I can remember you saying on the video that you found them really comfortable. And,
yes, they were exceptionally
they're
comfortable.
seductive things, aren't they? And the way that I had been in COVID times fitting my clients in America was to actually welt the shoe and then just put on a micro rubber sole and heel. Send it over to them so they could actually wear it. So, and then they could actually fit the shoe properly. So it gives a client an opportunity to actually properly wear the shoe before actually go out and do the fitting. So they've really had a chance to walk up and down with it rather than just try it on, put it on in the carpet and say that's fine and we carry on. Because we all know that when it comes to fitting shoes, you actually have to actually wear the thing. You've got to walk in them.
And they need
so
to be
it makes
welted.
a lot of difference, and it needs to be welted. So it's a really good way of actually organising fittings for clients when you can't actually get to see them. And I've always worn rubber soles and heels anyway, purely and simply because of the...
Practical man.
Yeah, practical man, yeah. So what I thought I'd do is I'd have a look round and see where else I could find some rubber soles and heels, because classically in the bespoke world now, we don't really hear very much about them. We hear a lot about beveled waists and triumph toe plates and, all kinds of fiddleback this and fiddleback that. But so I thought I'd look round historically for a classic bespoke client who had shoes made with rubber soles and heels on. So here we are, Duke of Windsor.
No kidding.
Ex-King of England. Here's a pair of his shoes.
These are his shoes.
These are his shoes, yes. So these are his shoes, Kirby. And if we go into this picture here, this is a picture of the Duke of Windsor's shoe closet, shoe cupboard. And we're looking and we're talking about the pair of shoes there on their edge. It's very difficult. It's not really distinctive, but the reason you can actually tell it's this pair of shoes is purely and simply because the actual tree is a bit busted up inside. So the trees are actually bent in the picture.
And you can see
this tree's sticking up like that, and that one, if you look at it, it's actually busted over at an angle. So we actually know that this is the pair of shoes from that picture, really.
Well, incredible condition given how old they are. I mean, this is
remarkable
amazing.
Condition. I mean, I should imagine difficult to know when these were actually made. I mean, there's no sort of making number or no actually date on them. They were from that classic firm, Peal & Co.
Yeah, I've heard so much about Peal & Co.
They were probably one of the great English shoemakers, closed down in the 60s, big shop on Oxford Street, closed down in the 60s, but they were the first shoemakers and the first English shoemakers to travel a lot consistently in America.
Okay.
They used to come over on the boat in those days, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and the early 60s. They'd go on 5-week tours of America. And interestingly enough, Terry Moore from Foster's, who you know a lot about, was a young boy and a young last maker at Peel's.
At Peal.
And then when Peel's closed down in the 60s, Terry Moore went over to Foster's there.
Yeah.
So there's a really nice link there between Terry Moore, because one of the things that Terry Moore did at Peel's was a lot of the riding boots.
Really?
So
Okay.
he took the riding boot last over, and Foster's riding boots came from Peel's.
Yeah.
But that's yet another aside.
Look at this, 487 Oxford Street.
487, and this was the earliest incarnation of Peel's on Oxford Street. They then moved to 600 and something else.
So that would kind of
in the
help
late
date
50s.
these.
So yeah, so if we could actually, I can't remember off the top of my head when they were at this address, but I mean, we're looking at shoes maybe from the 40s, probably just after the Second World War, really.
Wow. Okay.
So he's abdicated by then, no longer the King of England. But interestingly enough, what I really wanted to actually show you, apart from these trees are important, these are classic trees. So if you see on it, it's got PP trees, and it means this is the Peel's patent tree. So this is what they did, was they patented this hinge mechanism here. So when you actually had the trees made, you turn the tree like a wooden tree from the last, you chop the front off, you chop the back off, you put this metal stretcher in, and it just makes a really lightweight tree. So you don't actually have to carry a solid tree.
One of the original travel trees.
So it's one of the, literally one of the original travel trees.
And it's an aluminum mechanism too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is
Beautiful.
what they patented, and this was,
In step,
exactly, nice
fully
in
lasted.
step, fully lasted, and you can begin to get a sense of the way, classically, if you really want to understand last making, what they've done is they've cut out a lot of, they put a scoop onto this part of the tree in the last, which is, if you actually think about your foot, you don't have any flash. You've got your toes, your big toe here, your small toes running on the side here, and your big toe joint here. You don't actually have anything running here. So they really cleverly hollow out this area here, and especially over this big toe joint. You've got the big toe joint there, you've got the big toe there, and you've got nothing here. So what that does is it makes you make a last, which you end up with shoes that don't crease in this area because they've actually taken the excess material
Really?
out.
I love how forensic you are in your evaluation of everything.
Low cut loafer, look at that. I mean, not many people could wear anything that low cut as well. But I think, interestingly enough, more importantly, is they've got rubber soles and heels on.
Really?
So here is, the King of England organising and ordering a pair of bespoke shoes and asking them to have a very early rubber sole and heel on. Virtually solid, a classic Phillips heel from the period.
Yeah.
And then he's actually had a secondary rubber sole stitched on top and a leather toe piece inserted rather nicely in there. Square waist, even though it's got quite a narrow waist here, it's square, it's not beveled on either side.
Yeah. And at this period, you wouldn't ever have found beveled waists. I mean, that's such a modern
No, it's a
incarnation.
modern thing. What we're looking at is bespoke from a period 60, 70 years ago. The square waist was a lot of people had square waists. They were narrow and clipped, so you can see that the waist clips in underneath the heel, and the heel is small and neat as well.
Yeah. Well, if you look on the inside, I mean, again, you can see that it's still quite narrow.
Yeah.
Right? It's got that arch support.
The inside is very clipped as well, yeah. So,
Yeah, look at this.
classic piece of...
Bootmakers to the late King George V.
Which was, so we're talking about the Duke of Windsor, so we're talking his father. His father.
But that just goes to show you how far this Royal Warrant went back.
Yeah.
That this was King George. They held King George's
Yeah.
Royal Warrant.
Yeah, so
it's really something.
So I'm not even too sure if he was actually king long enough to get his own royal warrant.
I don't think so.
He probably
couldn't issue them in time.
He probably left. He probably left and headed off.
Yeah.
So
these would have been completely handmade, right? I mean, this would have been hand stitched through the leather outsole.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting. I mean, I think we think of, the Duke of Windsor, right?
Yeah, Duke of Windsor, classic, bespoke. I mean, he was an icon of his day in terms of bespoke. What he set the fashion for bespoke. You look through any historical menswear book, there's always the Duke of Windsor on the golf course, there's the Duke of Windsor at Newmarket for horse racing, classic sportsman. This is how he wore his shoes.
But it's a really smart model. I mean, it's casual, of course. but again, the handwork here.
Yep, exactly the same
the
classic
vamp
hand.
is beautiful. And then I even like, the way that this monk strap, or it's not monk strap, this penny strap is done, the bar. And I guess this would be this wouldn't even have been called a penny strap because that's an American really invention, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right? But this has a beautiful, it's almost like a mustache.
Yeah.
And then here the cutout, it's
just
very
neat and elegant.
Neat and elegant.
Neat and elegant, yeah. It's refined and it's neat and elegant.
Dominic, I think we're going to have to reproduce these.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you can have a pair of these. Yeah. Well,
so what else? When you look at this shoe, what else strikes you? Anything else?
Well, I think that's, a lot of it is still exactly what we see today. This binding and the way that the top line is made is exactly the same way that I made the binding on the loafers that you have with them. So I think overall, the structure is exactly the same.
Yeah.
The hand stitching on the apron is the same as it is today. I think it's just a question of the way you don't often see a bar which is as neat and elegant as that. Today, the bars tend to be longer. And also all of the fronts, the styling today, this is very low cut at the front.
Okay.
The styling today is to move everything back. So you've got a longer apron, you've got the bar set back higher, and then you've got the tab sitting up here somewhere. So this is, I suppose what's different is that they're almost a bit more styled like a pair of slippers or house shoes. And I think he would have worn these as much as a pair of house shoes when he was saying having tea in the afternoon, sports jacket, a pair of grey flannel trousers on, that's how he would have worn these shoes. Unfortunately, I've not managed to track down any pictures yet of him actually wearing these. But that's... well,
let's take a look at the photograph of the closet again, because I'm fascinated to see, kind of what other shoes...
Well, I think that's really interesting.
He's got quite a bit of casuals, quite a bit of slippers.
I think what we're looking at is there's a whole row of casuals here. So he's got
he clearly
1, 2,
liked
3.
this model.
Yeah. There's
which
3
is
pairs.
Essentially the same shoe, but with a white buckskin vamp.
Just done as a correspondent shoe. I think we've got some... he obviously liked the idea of black and white lace up. So he's got brown and white correspondent, which is a Norwegian with a lace up there. What's really fascinating are these shoes here. And I don't really understand even how to begin to describe these shoes, but they're essentially canvas. They're the forerunners of the tennis shoe. So they're the forerunner of the Converse shoe.
Yes.
So if you actually look at these had the kind of old-fashioned version of those Converse sole units. Yeah. So he was
How would the sole have been built on this? Is that leather?
Well, I think that's really interesting. The answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure, but I'd be fascinated. I will find out. For our next conversation, Kirby, you've set me homework.
You're such an
I normally set you homework, but actually, you know what? I'm going to have to find out. But these are fascinating shoes because this bottom row, he obviously had 4 pairs in different colours, canvas uppers, or they may have been like a buckskin upper, but I suspect these were all canvas, and they had the forerunner of these rubberized stitch sole units on. We call them Converse today. Look, 3 pairs of lovely embroidered slippers. Here, he's got his opera pumps, a couple of pairs of opera pumps, some opera pumps there. He's got a rather splendid... Now, where have we seen that boot before? Where was that boot made? Who made that boot famous? Winston Churchill.
Really? Okay.
Winston Churchill. There's some classic pictures of Winston Churchill with a zip-fronted boot.
Okay.
In fact, I think the pair of boots that Winston Churchill is wearing when he signs the declaration for the end of the war, it's a very famous picture. And that's fascinating because that is exactly the boot that Churchill was wearing when he sat next to...
Look at that.
The President, Roosevelt and Stalin. He was wearing, and again, that's not a boot we would see a gentleman wearing nowadays, but again, I think Churchill made that boot popular, and I think the Duke of Windsor got a pair made from Churchill. I think that's Churchill really wanted to have a boot like that made.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to see the history of, here we are, 2 iconic British bespoke figures and the way that their footwear collections linked together, and how they were, obviously, one of them took one look at the boots and said, well, I fancy a pair of those.
Fancy a pair of those, I'm going to have a pair made.
And there you go.
I love how, your lens through history, I mean, that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about our videos together, Dominic, is how, you really are clearly an amateur historian.
Yeah.
The work that you've done on the Duke of Wellington and his boots, which is going to be a 6-part series one day we film together.
Yeah.
And then, even just kind of digging out a bit of history about these shoes is
But it's interesting because it's the context. It's not, to me, there's a link between the Duke of Windsor and the shoes that we did for you for a fitting. Right, and there's a very close link. And you can actually begin to follow that thread through the ages. And that's what's classical about Bespoke. The way you're dressed in all of the clothes you wear, there is a historic thread that's running through time, really. And I just happen to think that these things are important.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at first pass, it would be easy for one to say that, that rubber outsoles wouldn't be traditional, and that's modern, right?
Yeah.
But here we've got the Duke of Windsor shoes, from the 1940s with rubber soles and done very well, very nicely, and it's an absolutely beautiful pair of shoes.
Exactly.
And there's clearly an application for that.
Yeah, exactly. And we would almost think that that's not really what you would have in the modern day if you're going to have Bespoke. It had to be leather and it had to be fiddleback and it had to be beveled, etc.
Yeah.
But the thing about Bespoke is that it's not about the style of shoemaking, it's about the client.
Yeah.
Here's the King of England. He wanted to go out and he wanted to walk in the rain and he wanted to walk on the grass and stuff. And he thought, actually, I need a different type of footwear. Yeah. Just as the Duke of Wellington, when he designed the boot, he said, actually, I've been in riding boots all day long. I want something softer. I want to... So here's these great English gentlemen. Churchill with his zip-fronted boot.
Yeah.
These great figures actually influencing the way they're having their shoes made. They're going to their tailors, they're going to their bootmaker. Churchill was always going to his tailors saying, look, I'm wearing this RAF uniform, but I want you to make it as a one-piece sort of romper suit, And he'd walk into Huntsman's and he'd get them to make him something completely different.
Yeah.
But this is the way the Bespoke world works,
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it was commissioning clothing that worked for your lifestyle. A little bit earlier, we were at Peal. We're filming a series on having a shooting suit made. And again, the suit has to look beautiful. I mean, it is a bespoke suit, but more importantly, it has to be functional, and it has to look beautiful while you're actually doing what it's meant to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's the classic link between form and function, which again is what Bespoke is all about.
It can't be too dandy or too, the superfluous details. I mean, that's the whole idea behind our sovereign grade line of clothing accessories is that, a sovereign, I mean, here we have, the Duke of Windsor, right? Former King of England. He, of course, had a demanding eye for quality, but there were no superfluous details here. It was all the quality that mattered, none that didn't, and it had to be functional.
Yeah, and he had the confidence to actually go into his shoemaker and say, no matter what everybody else is doing, this is what I need to work for me and for my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So what a privilege for seeing this today. Thank you. I love what it is you're able to dig up.
Yep. And, well, we'll see what we can dig up next time.
I know. You keep
hang on to your hats.
Hang on to my hat.
That's what I'd say.
Yeah. So do you have plans to come back to America? I mean, now that the U.S. is supposed to be opening up?
Yeah, I do actually. I have plans to come back. And I think, what I'd really like to do is really thank you because... and offer you my thanks because, when we first met, I had no idea who you were. Sorry, Kirby. I know we've become reasonably good friends now, but when you rang me up and said, I'm thinking about coming down, I'm interested in making a film on glass making, and we headed off down to windy, wet Eastbourne, on a freezing day where you had to wear my jumper.
Yes, that's right.
Filmed wearing my jumper. Yeah. Nobody knew me as a shoemaker, even though I'd worked as a shoemaker for sort of many, many years, well, all my working life really. So, I mean, what you have done for me is introduce me to American market. And over COVID and stuff like, these last periods, well, all my clients have actually come through watching these videos.
Really? Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I'm actually going back to America in December. And, my trunk shows are kind of private trunk shows now. They're all fans of Kirby Allison who've written to me.
Really?
And I'm kind of fully booked.
Yeah.
So I don't
well deserved.
so I don't really even advertise my trunk shows anymore. Well, the thing is, you know, I've got a very small production. You know, I make a limited number.
Yeah.
You know, I really value the relationship between me and my clients.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that's the pinnacle in the importance of bespoke.
Yeah.
So if somebody writes to me, they've seen one of your videos, and they write to an email on my website and say, you know, I'd be really interested in having a pair of shoes made. You know, I kind of really value that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that my books have really become full through people watching your channel and writing to me.
Well deserved. And thank you so much for, of course, all the work you do with us.
Yeah.
And again, what's incredible about you, Dominic, and anyone that's watched these videos, of course, the ones that we filmed together would know this, but you know, you're really quite unique in the world of shoemaking, other than just being a larger-than-life character and fantastic to get along with and great fun. And, you know, I've enjoyed our time together so much. But your shoes are, I guess, you know, bench-made in the classical sense, in that, you know, you are taking the measures, you're doing the last making, you're doing the pattern work, you're clicking the pattern, you're doing the making. I mean, it is truly kind of, and use the watch world, an in-house movement where your hands are the only ones to touch the shoes. And in shoemaking, and I mean, even in bespoke tailoring, that is exceptionally rare.
Yeah. But that's the way I like to work. But the problem I have as a business
is it only allows you to do, what, 20 pairs of shoes a year?
24 pairs a year. 24 pairs a year, and that's it. It's over. You know, so I'm hoping to come back in March, because I'd really like to come down to Dallas, and me and you, we want to go on a bit of a Texas road trip.
Where we're supposed to go down and see Lee Miller.
Exactly.
I should hopefully have those boots by then.
Very excited about that. Very excited about that.
Eat some barbecue.
So so I'm planning to come back, and we'll do New York and Dallas next year. But
so will you be coming in December?
December? No.
No.
I've got to do just a little private trip, but I've got so much work from that trip that I just can't get back until
March.
Till March, and then it may be only to see. I mean, there may be 3 or 4 clients at the most, really, because there's quite a backlog.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I must thank you for
You're going to get a wait list like Lee Miller.
You know
where
what?
People are going to be booking out 6 years in advance.
Well, yeah, I think that may well be true by the end of next year.
Well deserved.
I need to thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, look at these beautiful shoes. I mean, I'm wearing them today. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, and we've visited, of course, some of the most exclusive bespoke tailoring houses here in London, Savile Row, and to a T, everyone admires these shoes for their for their beauty and their classic elegance. And you know, my feet, I've been on my feet all day, and they're not killing me.
Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness. Yeah, no blisters.
Yeah, no blisters.
Fantastic.
And you know, I don't need to untie them or loosen them up, because they fit perfectly.
Look at
and
that.
Again, testament to your incredible work on these shoes. I mean.
And that's a great knot. Is that the Berluti knot?
Of course, it's the Berluti
knot. Look at that. I learned to do that from one of your YouTube lessons.
You know,
how to tie the Berluti knot.
I think that video is pushing several million now. So doing our part to evangelize the world. So
it's a great knot, Kirby.
Yeah. Well, Dominic, I'm thrilled to be back in London. I'm thrilled to finally be reunited. We're going to go have some dinner tonight at Rules. Enjoy, you know, a nice pint or martini or whatever, Negroni together.
Perfect.
I think, you know, we'll have to do a Negroni, only in due fashion.
Perfect.
To celebrate
I'm happy for doing that.
Celebrate us finally being back together. So, well, Dominic, thank you so much.
Yeah, fun, Kirby.
Cheers.
Always fun.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.